Good morning, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a power in stepping back, a kind of quiet strength in retreating, just enough to let the people around us feel our absence. It's not about playing games or withholding love. It's about recognizing the value we bring and allowing others to see it too. Letting people miss you isn't about detaching, it's about creating space for appreciation, growth, and clarity to emerge. Have you ever noticed how certain things in life become more precious when they're not constantly in front of you? Think about it, the stars are always in the sky, but we don't truly see their brilliance until the sun sets and the world grows quiet. Absence has a way of creating clarity, of sharpening our perspective, and of deepening our appreciation. When you're always available, always saying yes, always showing up without hesitation, it's easy for your presence to become expected rather than cherished. People begin to see you as constant, reliable, always within reach. While that's a beautiful quality, it can also lead to a kind of blindness. When something is always there, we often fail to see just how much it matters. By stepping back, even slightly, you create a moment for reflection. You offer the people in your life the opportunity to notice the value you bring. It's not about withholding your love or playing hard to get. It's about giving them the gift of perspective. Absence acts like a mirror. It reflects back to others what your presence truly means in their lives. This concept isn't just about romantic relationships, it applies to every connection we have. Whether it's with friends, family, colleagues, or even in our professional lives, absence has a way of amplifying the impact we make. Consider the way a melody is structured. The pauses between the notes, those brief moments of silence, are what make the music meaningful. Without them, the notes would blend together into noise. Your presence is the melody, but your absence is the melody. But your absence is the pause that allows others to truly hear it. Moreover, absence doesn't just amplify your presence for others, it also amplifies your presence for yourself. When you step away, you're giving yourself the chance to evaluate how much you're giving and whether it's sustainable. You're allowing space to reconnect with your own needs, values, and boundaries. Absence teaches people to treasure the moments they have with you. It reminds them that what you offer isn't just constant and automatic, it's special. When you're always accessible, it can unintentionally dilute the power of your presence. But when you step back, you give others a reason to reflect, to remember, and to realize just how much you mean to them. Imagine a candle burning brightly in a room full of light. Its flame is beautiful, but it can easily be overlooked. Now picture that same candle in the stillness of a darkened room. Its glow suddenly commands attention, warmth, and awe. That's the power of absence. It allows your light to shine brighter, not because you've changed, but because the conditions have shifted and your presence becomes undeniable. In creating space, you invite others to lean in, to notice, and to appreciate. You teach them to value what you bring, not out of entitlement, but out of genuine understanding. And when they finally experience your presence again, it's like a reunion with something they didn't realize they've been longing for. So remember, this absence isn't about disappearing, it's about allowing the people around you to feel the fullness of who you are. It's about trusting that your worth doesn't diminish when you're not physically there. Instead, your absence amplifies your presence, making it all the more meaningful when you return. Boundaries are one of the most profound acts of self-respect and self-love that we can practice. They are not about shutting people out. They are about inviting others to see and value us for who we truly are. Boundaries define the space where we end and others begin, and in that definition lies a critical truth. Every healthy relationship thrives on mutual respect, and boundaries are the foundation of that respect. Setting boundaries can be challenging, especially if you're someone who naturally gravitates toward giving, helping, or being there for others. It can feel selfish at first, like you're putting up walls to keep people out. But boundaries are not walls. They are bridges that teach others how to treat you and allow you to maintain your sense of self. When you establish boundaries, you are sending a clear and empowering message: I know my value. And I am worthy of care and consideration, that message, when delivered with consistency and kindness, teaches others to see you as someone who respects themselves and expects the same in return. Respect is not something you demand with words, it's something you model through your actions. Imagine for a moment that you're a garden. Without boundaries, anyone can walk through, trample your flowers, and take what they want without a second thought. But when you build a fence, not a fortress, but a simple, intentional fence, you're saying, this garden is worth protecting. That fence doesn't mean no one can enter. It simply means people need to approach with care, ask permission, and honor the space they're stepping into. Boundaries also create clarity. When you're constantly saying yes to everyone's demands, your relationships can become murky. People may start to expect more than you can give, or worse, take your generosity for granted. But when you set boundaries, you remove that ambiguity. You make it clear what you're willing to give and what you need in return. This clarity strengthens relationships because it eliminates confusion and resentment. There's another beautiful side to boundaries. They protect your energy and ensure that you're showing up as your best self. When you overextend yourself, whether it's by always being available, constantly saying yes, or sacrificing your needs for others, you start to feel drained, resentful, and disconnected. But when you honor your boundaries, you preserve your energy. You show up for others not out of obligation, but out of intention and love. And the people in your life feel that difference. They sense when you're present with your whole heart, and they appreciate it more deeply. Boundaries also teach others how to value their own needs and limits. When you model healthy boundaries, you're giving permission for those around you to do the same. You're saying it's okay to protect your time, your energy, and your well-being. This creates a ripple effect, encouraging a culture of mutual respect and self-care in all your relationships. It's important to understand that not everyone will respond positively to your boundaries, especially if they're used to you being endlessly available. Some may push back, test your limits, or even accuse you of being distant or selfish. But here's the truth: the people who truly value and respect you will honor your boundaries. They'll see them not as a rejection, but as a way to deepen the connection, because boundaries allow for authenticity to flourish. One of the most liberating aspects of setting boundaries is realizing that you don't have to explain or justify them. A simple no can be enough. You don't owe anyone an elaborate explanation for protecting your time, energy, or mental health. Your boundaries are valid because they are yours. Boundaries are also not static, they evolve as you grow. What you needed at one stage of your life may not be what you need now. And that's okay. The important thing is to continuously check in with yourself, reassess your limits, and adjust your boundaries as needed. This self-awareness keeps you aligned with your values and ensures that your relationships remain healthy and fulfilling. In the end, boundaries are an act of love, not just for yourself, but for the people in your life. They create a space where mutual respect can thrive, where both parties feel valued, and where connections can deepen without the weight of unrealistic expectations. So don't be afraid to set boundaries. See them not as barriers, but as invitations to build stronger, more authentic relationships. Respect flows naturally when people know where they stand, and you'll find that when you honor your own needs, you create room for others to honor them too. Growth rarely happens in the comfort of constant closeness. It's in the space we allow for ourselves and for others that transformation begins to take root. Space is not about creating distance to push people away. It's about creating room for reflection, exploration, and evolution. And evolution. Just as a plant needs space to stretch its roots and reach toward the sun, we too need space to stretch beyond what we've known and discover what we are capable of becoming. When we constantly occupy the same spaces, whether it's physical, emotional, or relational, we risk stagnation. Familiarity, while comforting, can sometimes become a trap. We fall into routines, expectations, and patterns that leave little room for the unexpected. But growth thrives in the unexpected. It requires a level of discomfort, a stepping back, and a willingness to be in the unknown. Giving yourself space doesn't mean isolating yourself or abandoning the people you care about. It means recognizing that growth requires moments of solitude, introspection, and personal challenge. It's in those moments when you step away from the noise of everyday life that you gain clarity about who you are and what you truly want. You begin to hear the whisper of your own voice, your dreams, your desires, and your truths. Now let's talk about space and relationships. One of the greatest gifts you can give to those you care about is the room to grow. Too often we equate closeness with connection. We think that being constantly present is the only way to show love or support. But in truth, closeness without space can lead to dependency, and dependency stifles growth. Imagine holding a butterfly in your hands. If you grip it too tightly, you'll harm its wings. But if you cup your hands loosely, giving it room to move, it has the freedom to fly in return. Relationships are much the same. When we allow the people in our lives the freedom to explore their individuality, their dreams, and their potential, we're creating a foundation of trust and respect. They know they are loved, not for what they do in our presence, but for who they are, even when we're not looking. Space also allows for deeper appreciation. When you're constantly in someone's orbit, it's easy to take their presence for granted. But when there's a moment of absence, you begin to notice the little things, their laughter, their wisdom, their kindness. Absence doesn't diminish connection, it deepens it. It reminds us why we value someone in the first place. For personal growth, space is equally essential. When you give yourself permission to step back from the demands of others, you open the door to self-discovery. You learn to trust your instincts, to cultivate your passions, and to embrace the parts of yourself that may have been overshadowed by the expectations of others. Growth doesn't happen in the crowd, it happens in the quiet moments when you're alone with your thoughts. Creating space also teaches us resilience. When we rely too heavily on constant affirmation or validation from others, we become dependent on their presence to feel whole. But when we cultivate space, we learn to stand on our own. We build confidence in our ability to navigate life independently, knowing that our worth isn't tied to anyone else's approval. Another powerful aspect of space is its ability to foster creativity. Think about it when your schedule is packed, your mind cluttered, and your heart heavy with obligations. There's little room for inspiration to take hold. But when you step back, when you clear the mental and emotional clutter, you create the conditions for creativity to flow. Ideas flourish in open spaces, just as plants thrive in uncrowded soil. This doesn't mean space is always comfortable. Growth often comes with growing pains, and creating space can feel lonely or uncertain at first. But that discomfort is where the magic happens. It's where we learn to sit with ourselves, to confront our fears, and to embrace the possibilities that lie beyond the familiar. Giving space also requires trust. Trust in yourself, trust in others, and trust in the process of growth. It's about believing that the people you care about will use that space wisely and that you too are capable of navigating the unknown. It's about understanding that growth isn't linear, it's messy, unpredictable, and deeply personal. In relationships, in work, and in life, space is not the absence of connection, it's the soil where connection deepens and flourishes. It's the quiet moment before the symphony, the pause that makes the next note more powerful. So don't fear space. Embrace it as a necessary ingredient for growth. Let it teach you patience, appreciation, and resilience. Trust that in the space you create, something beautiful is taking root. Growth may not always be visible right away, but with time, it will become undeniable. Like a garden after the rain, the space you cultivate today will yield abundance tomorrow. One of the most transformative truths we can embrace is that our self-worth is intrinsic, it comes from within, and is not determined by how others perceive us. Yet so often we tie our sense of value to external validation. We look to others for approval, recognition, or praise, believing that their opinions define our worth. This mindset not only limits us, but also makes our confidence fragile as it hinges on circumstances we cannot always control. Self-worth begins with recognizing that you are inherently valuable simply because you exist. You do not need to earn your worthiness through achievements, relationships, or societal standards. It's not tied to how much money you make, how successful you are, or how many people admire you. When you base your value on these fleeting measures, you set yourself up for a cycle of self-doubt. The moment those external factors shift or disappear, so too does your confidence. When you depend on others to define your worth, you give away your power. You become vulnerable to their judgments, moods, and actions. A single critical comment can shatter your confidence, and a lack of acknowledgement can leave you questioning your abilities. But self-worth that comes from within is unshakable. It allows you to face criticism without crumbling, to stand firm in your values even when others disagree, and to pursue your dreams without the constant need for validation. Self-worth is deeply connected to how you see yourself. It requires you to confront the internal dialogue that runs through your mind daily. Are your thoughts uplifting or self-critical? Do you speak to yourself with kindness, or do you replay moments of failure and shame? Cultivating self-worth means becoming your own advocate. It means choosing to silence the inner critic and replace it with a voice of compassion and encouragement. The process of developing self-worth also involves letting go of comparison. When you measure yourself against others, you inevitably focus on what you lack rather than what you have. You see someone else's success and feel less accomplished, someone else's beauty and feel less attractive, someone else's joy and feel less fulfilled. Comparison is the thief of self-worth. It blinds you to your unique gifts and diminishes your sense of individuality. Self-worth thrives when you focus on your own path. It's about recognizing that you are on a unique journey that cannot be replicated. Your experiences, struggles, and triumphs are yours alone, and they shape the person you are becoming. When you stop looking outward for validation, you begin to see the value in your own story. It's also important to understand that self-worth is not about perfection. It's not about always having it together or never making mistakes. True self-worth allows for imperfection. It embraces the messy human parts of you and understands that mistakes are part of growth. It's about knowing that you are worthy even when you fall short, even when you're still figuring things out. Boundaries play a significant role in self-worth. When you have a strong sense of value, you are less likely to tolerate disrespect or mistreatment. You recognize that you deserve relationships that uplift and honor you, not ones that drain or diminish you. Setting boundaries becomes an act of self-preservation, a way to protect the sense of worth you've worked so hard to cultivate. Self-worth also requires you to take responsibility for your happiness. When you rely on others to make you feel valued or fulfilled, you place your well-being in their hands. But when you take ownership of your worth, you free yourself from that dependence. You realize that your happiness is your responsibility and that it begins with how you see and treat yourself. Developing self-worth is not always easy, especially if you've spent years seeking validation from others. It may feel unfamiliar or uncomfortable at first, but it's a journey worth taking. It involves self-reflection, challenging old beliefs, and committing to practices that reinforce your value. It means showing up for yourself daily, even when it's hard, even when you're tempted to seek external reassurance. Self-worth is a quiet confidence, a deep knowing that you are enough just as you are. It's not loud or boastful. It doesn't need to be. When you carry self-worth within you, it shows in how you walk through the world. It's evident in the decisions you make, the risks you take, and the way you allow yourself to dream without fear. Self-worth allows you to stand tall in your truth, no matter who is watching or what they think. In the constant hum of modern life, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. The noise of endless notifications, competing priorities, and the persistent rush to keep up often drowns out the subtle moments where gratitude resides. But when we step back, when we embrace the quiet, we create space for appreciation to flourish. Quiet doesn't simply mean the absence of sound, it means creating an environment where reflection and mindfulness can take root. It's in these moments of pause, when we're not preoccupied with what's next or distracted by external demands, that we begin to notice the beauty of what we already have. Silence allows us to see the unnoticed details, hear the unspoken words, and feel the depth of our connections. When we are constantly present in someone's life, always accessible, always available, the value of that presence can become muted. Familiarity, though comforting, can lead to complacency. People may begin to take for granted what has always been there, assuming it will never change. But when we step back, even briefly, we give others the gift of perspective. In our absence, they can reflect on what our presence means to them. They can notice the small ways we contribute, the unique qualities we bring, and the void that exists when we're not around. The same principle applies to how we appreciate the people and things in our own lives. When we are constantly surrounded by abundance, whether it's in relationships, possessions, or opportunities, we can become numb to its value. But stepping away, slowing down, or even enduring moments of loss can reignite a sense of gratitude. Quiet creates the contrast needed for appreciation to emerge. Appreciation also grows when we shift our focus inward. In the quiet, we have the opportunity to connect with ourselves, to acknowledge the gifts we often overlook in our daily lives. It's in these moments that we remember to be thankful for our health, for the kindness of a friend, for the simple joys of a meal, or for the beauty of nature around us. Quiet teaches us to find gratitude not in the grand or extraordinary, but in the simple and ordinary moments that often pass unnoticed. The quiet moments are where authenticity lives. When the distractions fade, when there is no audience to impress or expectations to meet, we are left with the truth of who we are and what we value. Appreciation grows here because it is no longer influenced by external pressures or fleeting emotions. It is genuine, unforced, and deeply rooted. Relationships flourish when they are nurtured with moments of quiet appreciation. When we step back and let go of constant engagement, we give space for relationships to breathe and for appreciation to deepen. In that space, others can reflect on the qualities they value most in us, and we in turn can see them with fresh eyes. Quiet doesn't diminish connection, it strengthens it by allowing us to focus on its essence. Quiet also creates room for gratitude to be intentional. In the noise of everyday life, gratitude often becomes reactive, a response to something significant or out of the ordinary. But in the quiet, gratitude becomes proactive. It becomes a deliberate act of noticing, reflecting, and cherishing what is already present. Quiet slows us down enough to count our blessings and to name them one by one. Even in professional or creative endeavors, quiet is where ideas are appreciated and cultivated. It's in moments of stillness that we have the clarity to recognize the value of our efforts and the contributions of those around us. Quiet is where innovation happens, where growth takes shape, and where the seeds of success are sown. The power of quiet is that it brings us back to the present. It interrupts the cycle of distraction and busyness, grounding us in the now. And in that present moment, appreciation has room to grow. We start to see the richness of our lives not as a fleeting thought, but as a profound realization. Quiet teaches us that gratitude doesn't come from more things or more noise, it comes from more presence. Appreciation grows not in the excess, but in the pause. It's in the moments of reflection where gratitude begins to bloom. Quiet creates the fertile ground for that growth, allowing us to notice what we often overlook. It's where we come to understand the depth of what we have and the true value of those who journey alongside us. In a world that constantly demands our attention, it is in the moments of silence and absence that we truly discover our value. Boundaries protect our energy, space nurtures our growth, and appreciating ourselves and others becomes clearer when we step back. By learning to honor our own worth and allowing room for reflection, we deepen our connections and foster authentic appreciation. As we embrace these quiet moments, we unlock the power of presence, creating a life that is not defined by noise, but by the meaningful spaces between. In those spaces, we find everything that truly matters.